Every day is a new day for gaming, and all the days that have gone have seen their share of iconic gaming moments. And this week isn't any different. Hi, my name is Patrick Hickey Jr., author of the Minds Behind the Games book series, and we're back with another week of video gaming nostalgia. And if you feel like pushing a controller button, why don't you push that subscribe button, and that like button, and that bell button? It's just as satisfying. Trust me. Play fighting was always a silly thing we did as kids, but the way we took these things seriously would make Master Roshi proud, and even if we ended up with bruises and scratches. When has that ever stopped us from believing that Kai could magically come out of our small puny hands, or our hair standing up and going blonde while screaming at the top of our lungs? This shows us how much influence Dragon Ball has had on our childhood and our adulthood. And as kids, it's hard to contain our excitement whenever a Dragon Ball Z game comes out, and there's a lot of them. Dragon Ball Z Legendary Super Warriors came out on November 8th, 2002 for the Game Boy Color. Seeing that Ginyu Force, the main character's Super Saiyan forms, as well as the fusion characters, Gotenks and Vegito, brings back all of that power fantasy. Progress the story and unlock battles through story mode, try out the wit-draining battle mode, or challenge your friends in versus mode to see who is the most powerful warrior of all time. And trust me, it's always Mr. Satan who comes out on top. As for the best warrior in gaming history, nothing comes close to Master Chief. Fight me on that. This is the one game you certainly don't want to finish the fight anytime soon, and you'll always want to come back for more. You know, just to bring the Covenant back their bomb. Halo 2, released on November 9, 2004, was the most anticipated sequel to one of the Xbox console's most definitive first-person shooters of the generation, Halo Combat Evolved. The return of Master Chief and her trusted AI waifu, Cortana, sees our protagonist flying like a brick as they race to stop the Covenant from wreaking havoc on Earth in their bid to fulfill the Great Journey. This also introduced us to some of the best supporting characters in the game, like Sergeant Johnson, Miranda Keyes, 343 Guilty Spark, and the biggest surprise of them all, a new playable character, the elite alien Arbiter. This also marked the return of the dreaded Flood, and their introduction of new boss types and enemies like the Prophet, the Heretic, Tartarus, and the Brutes. The multiplayer also saw some new changes as they featured more competitive maps and playlists, as well as social playlists, and also got new weapons like the Brute Plasma, Brute Shot, SMG, as well as dual wielding, a first in the franchise. If it ever felt like the game ended on a cliffhanger though, you might be right. The game had to undergo a lot of cuts due to budget and time constraints. If the leaks at the time were anything to go by, we could have seen Miranda Keyes' betrayal, as well as a final level on the High Charity finally finishing the fight. But not all games end up with a good sequel, and it's honestly hard to break the sequel curse. So a good way to circumvent this is to go and give a fresh perspective on a game via a reboot. One example is Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time. This was a reboot of Prince of Persia 3D, originally released on the PC and the Dreamcast. The action-adventure by Ubisoft was released on November 10th, 2003 for the PlayStation 2. Swinging through bars, running on walls, climbing pillars, and rewinding time, all made for a unique parkour experience. This allowed the game to reach critical acclaim, albeit slowly at first, but gain traction as more gamers saw its unique mechanics in play. Some are even claiming this to be one of the greatest games of all time. A remake of the game was announced to be released in 2022. And consider us all ready to experience the game once again in a fresh light. If you're up for a little confrontation with your friends via online multiplayer, then we're sure ChuChu Rocket made your jaw drop, even if you weren't allowed to visit little Timmy because of chickenpox. Yes, you heard it right, the Dreamcast game was released on November 11th, 1999, with the first ever online support for a console. Beat your friends at the comfort of your own home while you sit on your gaming chair and breathe loudly on the mic. Remember that? Oh wait, wrong timeline. Nonetheless, this gaming first gave us a glimpse at the future and showed us how a little innovation could become the biggest staple and necessity for years to come. As for the game, players must put arrows on a board to lead cute little mice, or choo-choos, into escape rockets while avoiding the kupu-kupus. Who knew puzzle games could have so much bombastic action? And did this variant warrant online support? Yes, definitely. Speaking of bombs, another accessory that made a blast during its release in 1986 was the Power Pad for the NES. On November 12th, the accessory made its way to Japan and was a floor mat game controller with 12 pressure sensors. Made with flexible plastic, kinda akin to the dance pad later used for the PlayStation 2. All you had to do was lay the accessory out in front of the video display for various games, and you're ready to step on the buttons. If you're ready to work up a sweat while practicing your coordination and timing, then the Power Pad games back in the day, they were worth a shot. If you love putting your gaming skills to the test, then this familiar side-scrolling beat-em-up for the Game Boy Advance will bring back good memories, or bad ones if you don't like the difficulty ceiling. You know what I'm talking about, right? It's Double Dragon Advance. The remake was published on November 13, 2003, where you play as Billy Lee and his brother Jimmy on a quest to rescue Marion. As with most beat-em-ups, nothing is ever easy, as you have to fight your way through hordes and hordes of Shadow Warriors. Defeating the Shadow Warriors can be a pain. Thankfully, we've had some helpful cheats back in the day that gave us Double Dragon Power! Or 10 credits because, you know, extra lives are hard to come by. Pressing and holding down a specific set of buttons would grant you these extra credits if you didn't want to put in the skill. But if you want to make things extra harder, you can unlock Expert Mode by pressing another set of buttons. But seriously, who does that? I'm looking at you, Dark Souls players. Speaking of challenging games, let's take it down a notch and allow us to introduce you to a far more relaxing game. With that said, it's a great time to remind you about a certain casual Disney game we all know and love. Released on November 14, 2000, The Jungle Book Mowgli's Wild Adventure for the Game Boy Color is certainly a bare necessity. And those are always welcome. Playing as Mowgli while traveling different jungle levels was always a treat, while learning new tricks, such as rolling into a ball, and performing a hand-over-hand climb made for a fun and engaging experience. Let's not forget to use coconuts and bananas when there are predators nearby. You can't forget that. I mean, that would only make sense because predators aren't really into fruits, I assume. We meet familiar faces along the way from the animated film translated into the game, such as Bagheera, Baloo, King Louie, Kaa, and the deadly Shere Khan. And that ends our weekly video gaming history session. Don't miss out on history class next week, but before you go, be sure to hit subscribe, press the thumbs up button, and click the bell icon for more notifications. That bare necessities, a simple bare necessities. Forget about your worries and your strife.